the President of the United States, accompanied by Governor Evan Bayh, the Prime Minister of Ireland, Albert Reynolds, Mrs. Ethel Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy, Martin Luther King III, and Dexter King. Diane Myers-Simon.
Good morning. You look beautiful. It's wonderful to have you here. Mr. President, Senator Kennedy, King brothers, Mrs. Kennedy, Ambassador, Governor. That's an incredible lineup, isn't it? Incredible. You know, it's appropriate that it's sprinkling, because on the night of April 4th, 1968, it was sprinkling, it was raining, and I can't stand up here and not be very emotional. This is a very poignant moment for me, because for years and years and years, a very dear friend of ours, this community's, Larry Conrad, and I dreamed of this day, and I wish Larry could be here with us physically, but I know he's with us in spirit. And I just want to say thank you, Larry. Thank you for believing this could happen. I remember being at this park and understanding that Dr. King had been killed. And I remember hearing these words: "Even in our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our despair against our will comes wisdom through the awful grace of God." The territory of love and compassion is the heart, and Bobby Kennedy knew the heart. He understood our feelings, and he eased our pain. In my memory, that moment was so clear and so focused, and it was vibrating bright with life, and it changed my life, and I think it changed everybody else's life who was there that night. The next week, I left college and went to work for Bobby Kennedy, and in June, those warm memories embraced me when tragedy hit again. But Bobby Kennedy didn't say, "if only." He didn't like to say, "if only." I've spent years saying, what if? What if we had the world built on love and compassion that Bobby and Martin talked about? If we want that change, then we must be that change. We must commit ourselves to living a life based on love. We must make all of our decisions through our hearts. That is the only reality. And it's the living memorial that we carry from this spot today. At no other time since June of 1968 could we have come here with just as much hope as we have today. The hope to do justice for and to the memory of Bobby and Martin. For you see, we finally have a president who carries the promise of Bobby Kennedy and Dr. King. We have Bill and Hillary Clinton, who carry those promises in their hearts and on their lips and in their deeds. We have a president and a first lady who lead with love and compassion. And we must support them when they are ridiculed for discussing the issues of the heart. There are no other issues but issues of the heart. We need to start a national conversation about a value shift in this country and about those issues of the heart. Will you help me with that? Will you start that conversation? Think about it. When somebody stirs up hate, they get a talk show gig. When somebody's out there talking about love, you better hold on, because they're going to get attacked. And you know that. And we have to stand up, and we have to be there, and we have to remind people of the truth in a loving way, and explain to them that those are the issues that are going to make this country what we want it to be. Those are the issues we all have the ability to solve. All we have to do is put our hearts in our mouths and use it. If we don't clean up from the inside out, the truth of the matter is that this gig is up for us. So we have it in our hands to do it. The violence in our society today is directly related to the fact that we're alienated from each other, from nature, from God, and from ourselves. That is what today is all about. That's what this memorial is all about. That's what April 4th, 1968 was all about. And finally, I want to ask you to do the same thing Bobby asked of us that rainy night. Please say a prayer for this nation, for the Kennedys, for the Kings, and say a prayer for Bill and Hillary Clinton. And if you could, maybe just say a little prayer for the Pacers this afternoon.
Governor Evan Bayh.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It is my pleasure on behalf of all of us here and the 5.5 million people of our state to welcome those who have journeyed far to be with us for this very important occasion. I would like to extend a heartfelt welcome to the Kennedy family, to Senator Kennedy and Ethel Kennedy. Their family has had a very special connection with our state for many, many years. We welcome you. I would like to welcome the sons of Dr. Martin Luther King, Dexter and Martin III, who are literally following in their father's footsteps here this morning. I would like to welcome several of my fellow governors from across the country who have journeyed to be with us here today, and the Prime Minister of the nation of Ireland, who is our guest. We welcome them to our great state. And of course, we welcome today the man who has brought us together, rich and poor, black and white, rural and urban, to this spot. We welcome our president today, a man who is continuing the legacy of Robert Kennedy and the dream of Martin Luther King, not just with the words that he speaks, but with the actions that he takes in Washington, D.C. Mr. President, we welcome you today. My friends, we have gathered today on hallowed ground, ground sanctified by the memory of two great Americans who gave of themselves so that we might be here today, prosperous and free as we are. We gather today to rededicate ourselves to the causes for which they gave themselves: social justice, an end to violence, and racial toleration. A little rain won't interrupt the ceremony, my friends. My friends, we gather here today to lead the way on behalf of the citizens of our state, to give of ourselves so that the monument we dedicate will not be made of steel or stone, but will live written large upon our hearts. And in so doing, we will live on and continue the memory of Dr. King and Robert Kennedy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Please take shelter. The rain will not interrupt the ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, now we're all being tested by a little rain. Those of us who grew up in farming areas know that the rain is a gift from God. It's going to help us all grow a little. Let me say how honored I am to be back in Indianapolis with your governor, your mayor, the prosecutor who supported this fine project. I'm glad to be here with Congressman Jacobs and the other members of Congress, and with Senator Lugar, who was the mayor here that fateful night in April in 1968, so long ago. I thank Mrs. Kennedy and Senator Kennedy and Martin and Dexter King for coming here, as well as others from Indiana that came down with me, Congressman Romer, Congressman McCloskey, Congressman Lee Hamilton. Let me tell you, folks, even in the rain, I can say in a much more brief manner what I would have taken longer to say if it hadn't been raining. And it is this: I sought the presidency because I was inspired by what you just saw on that screen when I was a young man, and I believed we could do better. I believed that we could build a country where we would go forward instead of backward, and where we would go forward together, where people would deal with one another across the bounds of race and region and income and religion, and even different political parties and philosophies, with respect and honor, to try to pull this country together and push our people forward. We just have witnessed a miracle in South Africa. We hope we are witnessing a miracle in the Middle East as the Palestinians cheer and the police officers move in to Jericho and they try to take control of their own destiny. Everywhere in the world, people have looked to us for an example. And I ask you today, have we created that miracle here at home? What you saw in Robert Kennedy's speech was a miracle that night. He was advised not to come here. The police said, "We're worried about your safety." Cities all over America erupted in flames when Dr. King was killed. But a miracle occurred here in Indianapolis. The city did not burn because the people's hearts were touched. Miracles begin with personal choices. Yes, I would like to say to you, the things I can do as your president to create jobs, to empower people through education, to reform the welfare system, to give health care to all Americans, to pass this crime bill, these things will change America. Oh, yes, they will. But in the end, America must be changed by you, in your hearts, in your lives, every day, on every street in this country. And you can do it. In our nation's capital, just a few days ago, there was a news story about people living in a poor neighborhood who got sick and tired of seeing their children shot and living in fear, so they put a big fence up around their neighborhood. And they hired guards, just like they were rich folks in a planned development. And they got exactly the same result. People could go outside and sit on the park benches, and the children could walk and play. And one of the men was interviewed. He said, "I guess this is freedom in the 90s. Is it freedom in the 90s when we have to put up walls between our own people, even as we celebrate the walls coming down from Berlin to South Africa? Is that our freedom? Are we going to live in a time when all of our political dialogue becomes a shouting match? You heard what Diane said. That's absolutely true. If you preach hate, you can get a talk show. If you preach love, you'll get a yawn. What we have to decide today is whether we are going to live by the spirit that animates this park and this project, I want to thank the Indiana Pacers. I want to thank your prosecutor. I want to thank everybody who's responsible for this gun buyback program. But when they melt that metal down and they make this statue to the memory of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy, you ask yourselves, why don't we keep giving these guns up? Why don't we keep melting them down? Why don't we make a monument to peace where all of us can live together, not with walls coming up, but with walls tearing down, so we can go forward together. God bless you, and thank you very much.
Senator Ted Kennedy.
Mr. President, Governor Bai, and the friends of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy, President Kennedy said that the rain sometimes came down in Indianapolis, but the people are always with sunshine smiles. And that's what I see out there today. It's 26 years since that sad evening in April 1968, when Robert Kennedy stood in this place and told the crowd about Dr. King. The tears and the years have passed, but for all of us who lived through that tragic time in our history, the anguish of that evening will never truly pass. It is still vivid in our memory, and the power of that memory sustains and encourages us as we carry on their work. The words my brother spoke here those many years ago rang true then, and they ring with even greater truth and urgency now. In the words of a poem I heard recently, we must accept responsibility for those who stare at photographs from behind barbed wire, who are born in places we wouldn't be caught dead, who never go to the circus, who live in an X-rated world. We must accept responsibility for those who have no safe blanket to drag behind, who watch their parents watch them die, who don't have rooms to clean up, whose pictures aren't on anybody's dresser, whose monsters are real. We must accept responsibility for those whose nightmares come in the daytime, who aren't spoiled by anybody, who go to bed hungry and cry themselves to sleep, who live and move but have no being. We have made some progress in the past quarter century against the forces of crime and violence, of discrimination and division, but we know we must do better. That is why I am honored to be here this morning with the President, who accepts the responsibility described in that poem, who shares the great dream of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy, who is committed to a new season of progress towards their goals, and who is striving with such ability and commitment to achieve them for our country. By turning swords into plowshares, guns into hope, this memorial to my brother and to Dr. King will be a powerful and enduring symbol to all who come here, white and black together. Some may ask, what difference can it make when there are so many guns here on so many streets, in so many homes, in so many neighborhoods, in so many communities across the country? A story gives the answer in vivid terms. An old man walking along a beach at dawn saw a young woman pick up a starfish and throw it back into the sea. "Why are you doing that?" the old man asked. The young woman explained that the starfish had been stranded by the tide on the beach and would die in the morning sun. "But the beach goes on for miles," the old man said, "and there are so many starfish. How can your effort make any difference?" And the young woman looked at the next starfish in her hand and said, "It makes a difference to this one." In that spirit, I commend each of you for the difference you are making. Together, let us make an even greater difference in the years ahead. Thank you.
Martin Luther King III.
Mr. President, Governor Bai, Senator Lugar, members of Congress, it's a a great honor and privilege to join President Clinton, Senator Kennedy, and Mrs. Ethel Kennedy for this another memorial tribute to Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King, Jr. Briefly, I want to say one very quick thing. I just returned from one of the most challenging and wonderful experiences of my life, and that was to be in South Africa during the election and for the inauguration. President Clinton captured it so beautifully. But there was one thing about that trip that I'll always remember, and that was that one older gentleman, 75 years old, stated that he stayed up all night long because he was afraid to go to sleep, for had he gone to sleep, he may have died and not had the opportunity to change his country. And so after he voted, he said, now I can die because I've casted a vote for the first time in 75 years. We can never take anything for granted. We in America, a great nation, but we who have the opportunity to vote many times have not casted our votes. Martin Luther King Jr. used to say a voteless people is a powerless people, and that the most important step we can take is that short step to the ballot box. We must always remember that. Finally, I want to say that I think these words capture this occasion today and would be most appropriate. It also is a quote that I often heard my father say. He used to say that the ultimate test of a man is not where he stands on positions of challenge and controversy, but where he stands, the ultimate test of a man is not where he stands on positions of comfort and convenience, but where he stands on positions of challenge and controversy. On some questions, cowardice asks is a position safe, expediency asks is a position politic, vanity asks is a position popular, but that something deep within all of us called conscience asks is a position right. Sometimes we must take positions that are neither safe nor popular nor politic, but we must take them because our consciences tell us they are right. That is what is being done in a real sense here today, and I say, as others have stated, that we must continue to do those things that are right. I thank the Indiana Pacers. I thank everyone that is responsible for this. You know, Indiana Black Expo, which is something that this state is known for. The Expo was something that began in Chicago, in a sense, under Operation Breadbasket. And so there's so much about this great state. I'm just honored and blessed to have this opportunity to be with all of these great ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, and may God bless you always.
Donnie Walsh.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join with us now to honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Senator Robert F. Kennedy, whose names are forever linked in history by this site and whose memories forever hallow this ground. With the earth turned today by the President of the United States and the families of these two great Americans, we will lay the foundation for a memorial to their lives and a landmark to their ideals.